Have you ever felt the need to confess?
Your Honor, my client is 100% guilty. Please give maximum life sentence.
Has the burden of your misdeeds gotten so cumbersome you can barely stand to look at yourself in the mirror?
No. He's got a point.
If so, you're not alone, and you may find solace in the subreddit r/confessions. This is where people go when they have a burning desire to get something off their chest.
Serenity now!
Whether it's guilt you feel for something you did decades ago yet still think about constantly, or a secret so juicy you have no choice but to take it to the grave, r/confessions is here to help you relieve your conscience.
God, please, no!
Today I'm going to be reading some of my favorite posts from r/confessions.
I said let him go!
I stole from the museum as a child, and I don't mean from the gift shop. This one is hilarious. When I was about 7 or 8, I went on a school trip to a museum that had an ancient Egypt exhibit running. The museum staff allowed the class to look at some of the old relics, passing them around in a circle. I remember looking at this little green, blue colored figurine of a goddess with a hippo head. I really liked it. Without a second thought, I put it in my pocket and took it home with me. I sat at home playing with it, not really understanding the gravity of what I had done. Then we had a big assembly at school. The museum was looking for the figurine as it was not a replica, but an actual ancient Egyptian artifact. I remember playing out the scenarios in my head of how I could give it back without getting caught, but I couldn't see any way out of it. The museum became angrier and the assemblies grew more pressing. Letters went home to all parents. Parents were called in of the naughty children who could have possibly done it. Finally, everyone calmed down when they realized they weren't getting it back. I got away with it. The problem is now I'm 31 and I still have the figurine. I couldn't throw it away, it's thousands of years old. I couldn't give it back, I would have been in unbelievable trouble. If I gave it back now, it would look so strange that it turned up after all this time in the same town by someone who went to the same school. I've never told anyone about this figurine, no one else has ever seen it. I have no idea what I'll do with it, but that's my confession. Museum thief of an ancient Egyptian artifact at 7 years old. And a little update on this one. Just to let everyone know, thanks to your comments, I did the right thing and returned the figurine to the museum. I did it anonymously from a different city. I hope they receive it. I feel a lot better. Thank you.
Nice.
I shit on my neighbor's doorstep. This one feels empowering. So back when I was 10, my dad asked me if I wanted to make 20 bucks. I accepted. The catch was that I had to shit on our neighbor's doorstep. It was clear my dad had beef with this woman. She woke up in the morning and tried to blame it on our chihuahua. My dad yelled at her, saying that shit was bigger than our dog. Impossible! The point is, I don't feel bad. Forever daddy's girl? Ew.
Whatever that means.
When I was a server, I threw a customer's phone into a trash compactor. I had just started serving tables at a restaurant and I was working my first super busy brunch shift. I had 6+ tables and I'm not gonna lie, I had a tough time running all the mimosas that my tables were ordering. I could tell that one table of all women were getting abnormally angry about their drinks taking a while. I apologized for the delay and made a joke about it being an especially busy shift. I offered them a round of drinks on me to smooth the situation over. When I walked away, one lady murmured under her breath that I was an incompetent, not gonna say that. Let's stop there. It's common for people to treat servers like shit, but this was the first time I have ever experienced being spoken to like I was garbage. I shook it off and continued to be nice to them, but it only got worse from there. They started to laugh at me, shit-talk me to one another. They told me my future career looked pretty bleak considering I couldn't even serve tables. Honey, even a toddler can deliver drinks. When I took their order for food, one of the women refused to speak to me. She just stared at me while her friend ordered for her. By now, I'm pissed. I asked her why she felt the need to have her friend order for her. She laughed at my face, looked down at the menu and said it was because I was a dumb little bitch. Due to the fact that I was at work, I couldn't argue or tell her to eat shit for treating me like I was a dog. If I did, my boss would have fired me. They ended up stiffing me on their $200 check. Once they left, I realized the woman that gave me so much shit had left her phone. I took it and went out the back door to smoke a cigarette and try to calm down. Who the hell did that woman think she was? So I promptly turned off her phone and threw it into the trash compactor and turned it on. She came back minutes later and asked multiple staff members if we found it. I told her that I didn't see it when I bust the table and that I would call her if it turned up. I never told anyone, but I never regretted doing it. When you treat people like shit, expect shitty things to happen to you. I make copies of other people's keys for personal use. This one is just weird. Whenever anyone lets me borrow a key, usually to their house in order to pet sit. The first thing I do is go to Walmart and make a copy of that key for personal use after they ask for it back.
What did he say?
I never break into houses and steal anything other than food and maybe alcohol. But I love the feeling of being able to effortlessly enter a place I know I don't belong without anybody's knowledge. I have keys to multiple people's houses and a couple of building garages from my old job.
What the f?
Excuse me, what the actual fuck are you doing in my house?
I made my brother think he has alopecia for the last 15 years. This one's kind of horrible. This is probably the pettiest thing I've ever done, and I regret it to this day. When I was 15 years old, I got my first job and started to have some money of my own. I used my money to spoil myself and purchase nicer things like clothes, shoes, makeup, and salon brand shampoo. My brother used to sneak into my bathroom and constantly steal my nice shampoo. He would use them, and most of the time he would leave them open in the bathtub. This would result in the rest of the shampoo going down the drain and leaving me with empty containers. This drove me completely insane, and I hated him for taking my things. I tried to speak with my parents about this, but they told me that I should just learn to share. One day I went out and purchased hair removal cream. I mixed this into my shampoo bottle and left it in my bathroom. I gave him a verbal warning not to use my newly purchased bottle, but he stole it again anyway. Over the next few days, his hair slowly started to fall out and small bald patches started to appear. Seeing what I had done, I immediately emptied the remaining shampoo. I felt terrible, and I truly didn't think it would have as dramatic an effect as it did. My mother took him to the doctor to get a checkout, and they diagnosed him with alopecia. He then had to start using this special and terrible smelling shampoo to combat this. His hair did eventually grow back, but I just recently found out that he's still using the shampoo in order to prevent another alopecia flare-up. It's been 15 years now, and I've never told my brother that I was the one that caused him to lose his hair.
Oh my God!
When I was a kid, I would wipe my ass with towels that were hanging up. This one is disgusting. This is something I've never admitted to a single person. I'm not sure at what age I stopped doing this, but throughout most of my childhood, I had this OCD compulsion where every time I would finish wiping, I would stand up, walk over to the towel rack, and give it one or two more thorough swipes. I couldn't not do it. I felt unclean if I didn't. It wasn't until I got a little older that I realized just how fucking fucked up that was. My older siblings spent their entire childhoods drying their faces off with my shitty remains. I've been mortified about it for years, but I'm actually in tears of laughter writing this out right now. Like I said, that is disgusting. I gave a lactose intolerant customer dairy on purpose. I know this sounds weird, but when I worked at Starbucks, there was a regular customer that was very difficult and rude. And that's just a terrible combination for anybody to have to deal with. I was warned of this customer on my first day of training. She came in every morning and would try to rush the workers on doing their job, and she makes the other customers feel uncomfortable. 3 months into working, she came in one morning and caused absolute hell. She was complaining about her drink while one of my coworkers was making the drink. As soon as she got it, she accidentally spills it and asks for a completely different drink. I was so fed up. She wanted a frappuccino. She went into the bathroom while we were making the new order. I switched with my coworker and made the drink. Instead of almond milk, I made the frappuccino with regular milk. The drink was ready by the time she left the bathroom. She takes the drink and takes a sip and didn't complain. 5 hours later, she calls the Starbucks from the hospital, and I was the one who picked up. She got into a car accident trying to rush to a bathroom. She said she shit her pants. I couldn't be any happier that she was safe, but still got her karma.
I'm proud of you, you know that. I hope you do.
When the nurses were rude, I would make their drinks decaf. I worked at a busy hospital in Metro Atlanta. I was a manager at the Coffee Buffet Bistro. It was a great option to have besides hospital food from a cafeteria. Nurses with a piss-ass attitude about jobs they chose to do show up and start demanding things. They bitch that extra caramel drizzle or extra mocha is an upcharge. I do what I can to resolve it, but it's rarely successful. So I start fulfilling these ridiculous coffee orders with minimal upcharges. I meticulously make the drink to their very snarky request, and I make it decaf. Don't be shit to service people.
Surprise, motherfucker.
I once skunked a bottle of wine and gave it to my bully manager as a Christmas gift. I took some liberties with the title, "The linguistics aren't great on this sub." Many moons ago, I was working for a large technology company. It was common practice for managers on the same team to exchange some sort of token holiday gift just before Christmas. Something under $20. One of these managers was a very nasty woman who was quietly bullying some of her employees and one of the other managers on our team. We were trying to deal with her through the proper channels, but the holidays sprang up in the meantime. When the holidays came around, I bought a case of a nice red wine that I enjoyed and prepped them all with gift bags, except one bottle. The bottle for the nasty manager. I took that bottle and spent about 2 weeks heating up the bottle and chilling it by wrapping it in a particularly warm heating pad and standing it on top of my old apartment's hot water heater for 1 to 2 hours, then sticking it in the freezer until the bottle was cold to the touch. My goal was to ruin the wine, turn it into vinegar. The holidays came around and I gave my fellow managers their gift wine, and we all headed out of the office for a few days for company-wide time off. When we came back, everyone was talking about how wonderful the wine was, except the nasty manager, who was surprised everyone loved it. She was going on about how nasty it was and how bad it smelled and how she couldn't even drink it. It was intended as a harmless prank, but she was fired a few days later for bullying people. She exploded and mentioned my shitty wine in her tirade as she threw things around the office on her way out the door. I felt some degree of pride for that because fuck her for bullying people. I anonymously put my friend's phone number on a gay Craigslist ad. This was a few years ago before Craigslist stopped doing the relationship stuff. As a joke, I created an ad of Craigslist relationships, male looking for male. Essentially, the ad was pretty much a guy looking for a one-way ticket to Pound Town, ready to fucking suck anything, willing to be a cum dump, and all types of various things. I made sure to make it for serious inquiries only. I put his phone number in and then I sat back and waited. The next day, he makes a Facebook post saying, "Who the fuck put my number on a gay Craigslist ad? And if he gets one more dick pic, he will strangle whoever did this." As you can imagine, the comment replies on this post were great. The texts and calls continued for a few days until I took the post down and went to go hang out with him. He told me about the phone calls that he got and the text messages with the pictures. Oh, it was great. I never laughed so hard, I never admitted it, and I don't regret it.
Stop it. Get some help.
I give my 3-year-old son counterfeit fast food, and this is a fun one. I save my son's McDonald's wrappers in Happy Meal boxes, then reuse them by serving him microwave chicken nuggets and oven french fries in them. I even throw in ketchup packets and a little toy he'd forgotten he had to help sell the lie. He loves it, and I'm not sorry. I just told someone I was too tired from day drinking to hang out, but it's actually because I had 8 hot dogs and now I feel like I'm going to die.
I don't feel so good.
I lied to a blind neighbor and told him I moved away.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Many years ago, I was standing on one of my balconies when a taxi driver was obnoxiously blowing his horn out front and yelling for a blind man to walk towards my voice. That direction was towards traffic. My roommate and I went down and helped him to the taxi and scolded the driver for being so rude. I made the mistake of giving my blind neighbor my phone number so that I could give him a ride in the future. Then the phone calls came and never stopped. And when I gave him a ride, he would ask for various detours.
No, you have got to be kidding me.
Shut up!
I'm very calculated by nature, and if he had told me beforehand where he wanted to go, it would have been cool. But no, we'd be driving along and he'd throw in 2, 3 extra places each ride. It came to be every day that he wanted rides, and he'd even call me to remind me to give him a ride. Not that I was ever late or backed out. Finally, I had enough, so I gauged how blind he was. His response was that he was blind as a bat. A week or 2 after he said that, I told him I had a job interview in the next city. A week after that, I told him I got the job and was moving away in a month. After that, I moved away. After I moved away, it was strange as hell walking past him in silence as he stood on the sidewalk.
Huh?
I call fake orders into a pizza shop to get free pizzas. My husband works at a popular chain. We'll call it piece of butt for sake of rhyming. If orders are messed up or if a carryout order doesn't show, the employees get to take that food home. Sometimes I order pizzas under fake names and give the numbers of local businesses as callback numbers, then purposefully never show up to pay for it. 9 times out of 10, my husband brings home the pizza I ordered. This is sin pizza. Yes, I know. But sin pizza tastes better than honest pizza inexplicably. I recorded a porno over my aunt's wedding video. This one's hilarious. When I was 14 and 15, I stayed with my aunt Cindy for a week while I was working a job. The commute to my job was very long and she lived much closer. It sounds weird to work so young and also travel for work, but it was a family business. I couldn't sleep as usual, lifelong insomniac, and I'm awake at 3 a.m. flipping through channels on her satellite package. Flip, flip, flip. Wait a minute, was that a boot? Flip back and see a real honest-to-God porn. My aunt had subscribed to the Playboy channel. Hashtag jackpot. It's the dead of night. No lights are on, and I've got the volume down as low as possible. But this is in the living room, and it's a big open area in the middle of the house. So I've got one eye on the nasty office sluts getting promoted, and the other eye keeping watch. I hear someone get up and go to the bathroom. Fuck. I turn the TV off, but the satellite is still on. I dig through our entertainment center looking for a blank tape, find one, and slip it into the VCR. I set it to record and then go to bed. I lay awake in bed terrified because if I fall asleep and somebody turns on the TV before I get up, they're going to know it was turned to a dirty channel. When the first pinky streaks of morning show in the sky, I'm up and on damage control. I snatch the tape and change the channel, make sure everything is neat, and tidy up with the tapes underneath the TV. That's when I find the yellow label that had fallen off the tape. It says Cindy and Daryl Wedding 1985. No, 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 no. I look at the blank tape in my hand and see the faint outline of where a label used to be. They lined up perfectly. No. Suddenly I have this smoking gun of a horrible thing I did in my possession. Anybody who watched the tape would see 30 seconds of her getting ready with her bridesmaids, cut to half a porno set in the workplace. Then it cuts out later to reveal mid-wedding ceremony. I never watched the tape with any joy. Okay, but he did watch the tape. He's saying he watched the tape. I never told anyone. I just kept this hidden like some awful burden.
You fucked up.
I stole $40 from my mom to buy a can of Pringles. You are not gonna believe how this story ends. Back in grade school when I was about 10, I stole $40 from my mother's purse to use whenever I wanted to buy something. Once I got to school that day though, I saw one of the other kids had a can of dill pickle Pringles, which are still my absolute favorite to this day. My stupid 10-year-old self gave him all $40 for that single can and enjoyed every single one of those delicious fuckers. When I came to school the next day though, the same kid I had bought the Pringles from gave me back the $40. He was crying because apparently his mom screamed at him to give it back and now he couldn't buy candy with it because his mom won't let him keep it. I held on to that money for a couple of days until my mom started looking around and asking if I had seen the money laying around since it wasn't in her purse. So once I realized how I'd get my ass beat if she found out, I hid it under the couch and found it about 30 minutes later. I never got caught, but I still look back on it and laugh because I essentially got free Pringles out of the whole ordeal. I used to go into random homes in my neighborhood when the occupants weren't home. This one is just freaky. It was in the mid-80s when security wasn't like it is now, and also a lot of families just didn't even lock their doors. The first time I ever did this was when I was riding my bike in the neighborhood and saw a front door of a home open wide. I peeked in and said hello just to see if anybody was home. Nobody answered. I stood in the living room just scanning the area and got spooked and then left. After that day, I was hooked on it. I would wait for people to leave and enter through whichever door or window was open and would walk around. I never stole anything, but I did open drawers, closets, and went through personal belongings. I once found a wad of money rolled up in a sock. I took the money and the sock and put it in the next drawer over. I felt like I needed to leave a mark. What the fuck? I felt like I needed to leave a mark, so I ended up moving dishes in cabinets. Like I switched the cups with the plates and moved utensil drawers to another spot in the kitchen. I did this in about 8 or 9 homes until people started talking and getting suspicious. Of course, people started locking their doors, including our family. I stopped after that. Someone did call the police, but nothing ever came of this since nothing was stolen. I haven't trespassed in anyone's home, but I do switch things around in other homes when I'm invited over. And this is gonna be your friendly reminder to lock the door immediately.
Why?
I am accidentally my son's ghostwriter. This one's kinda cute. My 6th grade son had a school assignment last semester to write a poem. He was struggling as he's not the least bit interested. Since I was a child, I have always wanted to be a writer. I spent 5 minutes and wrote a quick dumb poem for him to turn in. Unbeknownst to me, his teacher submitted it to a poetry contest which he won, and now it's going to be published in his middle school's anthology.
That actually is pretty funny.
I sent a prostitute to my boss's hotel room. This one's a little wacky. This was an accident and it happened about 10 years ago. I had recently joined a Chinese-owned company in a fairly prominent position, and being the only white guy in the company, they like to send me to trade shows in China to indicate that the company was definitely not Chinese. I was sent to Guangzhou to the Hotel Dongfang just around the corner from the convention center. Of course, with the convention center in a town with many visitors, the prostitutes/madame/agents were out in force. Most of the people handing out cards for whores were very young kids. Seriously young, they looked to be about 10 years old or younger. Often the only English they spoke was, "You buy? So cheap." Every time I went out, I had kids pushing cards into my hands, into my pockets, or dropping them into any boxes I was carrying. Most of the time, that was that, end of story. On my second to last day, I went out with the sole intention of buying presents for my wife and daughter. When after the first shop, I was approached by an older madame who would not leave me alone. Every step of the way, she kept with me and encouraged me to buy so cheap. Even though I protested that I was married and not interested, she kept saying, "Your wife is not here, you buy so cheap." Eventually she said, "Tell me your room number." I send girl to your room, just 200. Thinking this was the best way to get rid of her, I said, 200? Okay. I'm in room 1024, and then carried on shopping. Since this was a fake room number, I had no intention of carrying out the transaction, and I promptly forgot about it. Next day, last day of the show, I was told the boss had flown down from Beijing and I was needed to help a colleague collect some stuff from his hotel room. I walked with my colleague, dodging the kids with the prostitute cards, back to the hotel until I was standing outside my boss's room. Room 1024. I have never ever dared to ask or say anything to my boss about this. Only my wife knows this story, and so too do you. I pretended I was selling something on Craigslist and got two strangers to meet awkwardly. Years ago, I made a new email address and got two potential buyers for a PlayStation that I was pretending to sell. I confirmed a date and time with both of them. Decided on the mall near a certain store. I asked what they'd be wearing so that I could find them. I gave each of them each other's description for myself, and then went and hung out. One walked up to the other. You could tell there was immediate confusion. They started arguing over who had what. You could see them get pissed once they realized what happened and wasted their time. They both stormed off on their phones. Sure enough, I got angry emails from both of them. I feel kind of bad about it, but it was a funny interaction to witness.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
I conspired with our local pub to stop selling my husband growlers of IPA because the beer made him smell so bad. I may get downvoted for this, but here goes. My husband loves IPA beer, but it makes him smell so bad that it's not even funny. It just reeks out his pores and will actually make our sheets and his pillowcase smell bad. It also really doesn't matter what brand or how high quality it is. Whatever's in IPA doesn't mix well with his body's chemistry. His favorite beer by far is from a local pub. I'd say he was drinking about 2/3 a growler of their IPA per week. I finally couldn't take it anymore, so one day at lunch, I went in and asked to speak with the owner. He's a very super cool guy, and he said that he also can't stand IPAs because it's the reason so many bad breweries have been able to open up, because IPAs take very little skill to make, and people often cover up their mistakes with the intense flavors. So he and I worked out a deal that anytime my husband came in, he and his workers would tell him that they were out of IPA, but they would offer him a bit more traditional lager at a discount. Our hope was that he'd eventually lose the taste for IPA and stop stinking up our house. I even offered to work out a deal with the owner that I'd pay him whatever he was losing on the discount, and he told me not to worry about it. So it's actually worked. I've tricked my husband's taste buds into liking lighter beer, and he seems to be past the disgusting IPA stage, and he smells way better. Suck it, shit beer.
Sometimes I stagger even myself with my genius.
I shoplifted over $6,000 worth of clothing in one stint. This one is just awful. This was almost 10 years ago. I was a sales associate as a teen at a well-known chain retail skate store. It was a cool job, but my store manager sucked. Just rude and aggressive all the time. Bullied the staff every day. I rocked it as a salesperson. I doubled my goals almost daily. Always at least met them. One day, the store manager got out our numbers for the quarter. We were a little behind where we should have been, but there were also two new associates who weren't carrying their weight. Store manager blamed me for the numbers and accused me of giving discounts to people and allowing others to shoplift. I had never done either of those things. I was livid. So one night, with a group of 4 friends or so, one of which used to work at the store with me, we came up with a plan to raid the place and give the store manager something to actually complain about. So I went into my shift on a Sunday morning, knowing the assistant manager would be hungover. I convinced him to take a nap out back and that I wouldn't tell if he let me claim the sales for the day. Didn't care about anything, so it was an easy yes. 2 of my friends coming in, acting as customers with their beach bags, as I'm working with regular customers on the floor alone. A customer would bring the purchase to the counter and ring it out and have the security tags removed and then immediately go into the changing room and bag it. Bring it to their cars, wait 20 minutes, and do it all over again. We had lists of all the items we wanted, and I had mine piled on the counter and ready to be taken. In 1 hour, we completed the list and my friends left. The assistant manager came back from his nap oblivious. I wrapped up my shift and went home. We divided up the clothing and celebrated. Never got caught. I put in my notice the next day and that was that. Old friend from work told me that when the next quarterly report came out, the numbers were so bad from shrink, the store manager got demoted. Was it wrong? Yes. Would I do it again? No. Do I regret it? Not even a little.
Okay.
I faked my resume and now I'm in the shit. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. Since I started high school, my parents stopped checking in on my grades and their mentality was basically, we don't care as long as you get into a good university. They've carried on this mentality to when I got into college. They didn't really check on my grades and gave me free reign as long as I majored in the subject they wanted and graduated on time with good grades. Well, basically what happened was I failed my first year and I had to switch my major. I didn't tell them and they didn't ask, so I thought as long as I got my shit together and didn't drop out, I'd be fine. One day out of the blue last semester, my dad asks me to write up a resume. I panicked and wrote up a resume, but changed the GPA and major and made up some shit that I thought would save me. Well, this winter break, my dad dropped it on me and told me he knows people in a big company. He gave them my resume and everything, and he wanted me to intern there. So I am fucked. They'll probably figure it out and let my dad know, and I'll probably get disowned or something. At best case scenario, they don't check and give me a job, and I'll have to live with the guilt that I got a job that I didn't deserve because of nepotism. This shit is depressing as fuck, and I'm typically an easygoing guy, but this whole ordeal is giving me anxiety like nothing else. I feel like an ass for failing and lying to my family about it, and now I'm on the verge of being blown. And I thought maybe making a post here will make me feel better, but I honestly don't know. I kicked a kid in his balls and he had to have one removed. This one's a little bit messed up. This happened when I was around 7 or 8 years old. It was my first year in primary school and I had joined the school with some of my friends from the local feeder school in the area. One particular boy was a year older than us and he was repeating the first year for some reason. He was of German descent from a very well-to-do family and a lot bigger than the rest of us. Possibly because he was embarrassed at repeating the year, he was a bit of a bully. He often picked on me and some of my friends. I'm sure we probably escalated things at times too because I know he was teased for being German. So one day, standing outside class, I kicked him full whack in the balls. He buckled over, but I can't really remember much of what happened afterwards. We probably tucked tail and ran. I can't even say for sure whether he deserved to be kicked in the balls at that time or if I just thought I was getting him back for previous behavior. Anyways, he missed school for a few days after and I heard some kids saying he was in the hospital. Soon after that, I was called in to speak to a teacher who, as far as I remember, dressed me down and explained that he had gone home and his testicle had swollen up to the size of a tennis ball and it had to be removed. I don't really remember getting into much trouble about it, but I do remember some of the other kids going on about it in banter. The details are hazy, but I feel so bad and I felt like I was going to be in so much trouble, so I never told my parents about it. This was made worse as my dad and his dad had gone to school together. I only found this out after seeing my dad chatting to his dad at a rugby match that me and the kid were playing in one Saturday, about a year after. I was freaking out the whole time they were speaking, and then I started to feel guilty that my dad might have been seen as rude by his dad for not apologizing for my action. It didn't come across that way as they seemed like old friends catching up, but I felt so guilty. I felt so awful about it. I mean, the entire time I didn't realize that it may have had an effect on him being able to have children, but I felt like I had done something so horrible and I always expected my family to confront me about it. When I learned of the reproductive challenges this might cause, the guilt was just amplified. The years that followed in primary school were mostly fine. On the odd occasion he would have a go at me. I remember him having a slightly shorter fuse with me than others, but I think he ended up being okay and less of a bully. Saying that, he did try to drown me in a river at our primary school leavers camp as I'd pissed him off for some reason. But mostly the in-between years went by without incident. I left that school to go to a different high school, so I never maintained contact with him. I saw him once during my teenage years and we chatted for about 5 minutes. I remember him being friendly. I hope he was able to have children. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry I never said sorry too.
You know what? Even if you killed somebody, I wouldn't turn you in.
Alright, I think that's gonna do it for r/confessions, but I've actually got a bunch more saved, so if you want me to make another video about this, subscribe and leave a comment. Thank you so much for watching, and feel free to check out one of my other videos floating around over here.